is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. We remember. יש כוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, רק כאשר הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, את הדרך. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. We remember. We are gathered here this afternoon to remember Helen Edith Ross. We join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to her family. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. But we begin our service with a recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Helen's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. There is a time for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting the planted, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time for refraining from embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for tearing and a time for sowing, a time for silence and a time for speaking, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for war and a time for peace. Adonai mi agor ba'ohalecha mi yishkon bahar kodshecha. Adonai, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them, or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, desha yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'aglei tzedek l'ma'an shemo. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. For those who have lived fully, death is not to be looked upon with fear, but rather to be accepted with equanimity. Coming is the natural close of a long and a good life, just as the sunset is the natural close of the day. When the sun sets, the sky is filled with a spectacular brilliance of multicolored light. These indescribably beautiful colors are the day's afterglow. And in the profound sense, those who have departed this world leave behind them an afterglow which can warm the hearts and brighten the lives of those who knew and loved them. The sun of Hadassah bat Mordechai v'Rachel, of Helen Ross, has set, but she has left behind an afterglow of memories that will continue to warm the hearts of family and of friends. Her light and warmth have not vanished, for her spirit and influence live on as an afterglow in their lives. This time I'd like to invite David to come forward and to share some words about his mom.
For Mom. Did you hear the one about the little Jewish girl from Wheeling, West Virginia? The punchline would have been corny and funny in my mother's deft comedic stylings. I'm sorry, Mom, but today I have no stomach for a witty finish. The one shining light that has guided me through laughter and pain has been ripped from my heart. I feel nothing but sadness and grief. But in Mom's honor, I will try to push that aside for a lighter tone. I'm sure everybody in this room would agree that Helen Edith Ross was the gold standard for daughter, daughter-in-law, wife, mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, great-grandmother. I think I said daughter-in-law already. Friend, confidant, office manager, business owner. Her nature was to effortlessly give to others and place their needs before hers. She graced us with humor and style. Our laughter was her joy. She was young when her parents, Max and Rachel, died. She had to come home from college and sell her father's jewelry store and put herself through college. Rumor has it that she became the youngest teacher at the Ohio State Adjunct College in the home economics department. She even hosted a radio and a television show on topics in home economics. While most people would assume this would make her a fabulous cook, I suspect her studies were more in the economics part of the home economics. It served her well, managing my father's dental practice and all of the family's finances. Cooking was not her forte. Burnt pots and pans was my memory. Her marriage to my father, Alan, lasted 63 years, ending when he passed away in 2019. And I guess I stood here then. Their life was full of travel and adventure. They saw the world, often taking us with them. They went to more Olympic Games and Broadway shows than any human being I know. She gave birth to myself and my brothers, Rick and Mark, and provided for us a solid Midwestern beaver cleaver home life. There was no drama or trauma in our childhood. It was idyllic. She was our anchor. I assumed everyone had such a childhood. As a psychiatrist, I treat people who've had trauma and drama in their lives, and I have no frame of reference. She taught us 3 brothers that we should stay together always, and that we would always have each other, and nothing should come between us. Even in death, her words give me comfort that we are not alone, ever. And when I married Debbie, she wrapped her arms around her and pulled her into the fold, finally a daughter. When the time was right and we were teenagers, she applied her business skills and opened her own store, Gifts and Games, selling chess, checker, backgammon, and rummy cube sets. She loved being a shop owner. She continued that later in life, running Rick's outlet store. It gave her such joy, and I thank Rick for giving her that outlet for her business skills. Of course, that was a full circle moment as he got his start selling jelly beans out of her store as a teen. After my father's death in 2019, she engineered the sale of their house and liquidated the contents for the second time in her life. She moved herself into her beloved Lincoln Park independent living facility where she was Helen with the hat to everyone who loved her there. She proudly showed me the article of her newsletter about her and the hats. She had hundreds of hats, all meticulously matched to her outfits. I never knew why she loved hats so much. I suspect it was like her jokes. They made everyone smile. Everyone who knows Helen expects to hear a joke every time they talk to her. Debbie just found a bin of collected jokes in her apartment, and Mark found that one of the most frequently visited websites on her computer was grandmajokes.com. I have never ended a phone call or visit with her without a joke, often corny, sometimes a bit off color. Learn this lesson. Never miss a chance to hear that joke or story or experience. The one you miss or cut short because you're too busy will be the only one you regret. All I know is there is now less good and laughter in the world. The last time I spent alone with Mom, we went shopping at Dorothy Lane Market, bought her favorite foods, apparently cheese and jelly. We got her glasses adjusted, ate a huge stack of pancakes at First Watch, stood at the base of the bell tower at the Carillon Historic Park. We listened to the bells play Strawberry Fields Forever, and we took selfies. And anybody who wants, they're in my phone. Then we returned back to our apartment and ate cannolis and drank citrus ginger soda and played Rummy Cube for hours. She trounced me, and I'm a good player. I wish I could remember the last joke she told me as I left. Her legacy lives on. 3 sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, 2 grandsons, 2 granddaughters, 2 grandson-in-laws, 2 hopefully granddaughters-in-law, and 3 great-grandsons. All are happy and healthy and all share a common bond. We all hold a piece of Helen in our hearts and minds, and some of us carry on the tradition, the corny joke, the pun, the wry, witty turn of a phrase, all just to see the look of joy on the face of the other person. Maybe the world will still be okay. That's what I wrote on the plane on the way here. Then we spent 2 weeks living in her apartment, sleeping in her bed. So this is my addendum. Debbie and I are staying at Helen's apartment at Lincoln Park. Every inch of her apartment is a memorial to her family. I draw comfort being surrounded by pictures of everyone she loved. Everyone who lived there has stopped me in the hall and asked, "What will we do? How could this happen?" She was the shining light of this place. She headed committees. She was vital to our group on issues of aging. She taught us how to prepare our just-in-case documents. She told us a joke every time we saw her. She made everybody feel happy. She was so young. Tell a joke every day. Make a pun, as corny as possible. Leave little drops of Helen everywhere you go. That is how we will keep her in our hearts and perpetuate her legacy of spreading joy and good in the world.
I'd like to invite granddaughter Cameron forward.
I inherited Helen's height, so I'm going to need the apple box. And as another aside, she would always say that she carried 2 handkerchiefs, one for blow and one for show, and I only brought the blow kind. So, I was born a doll baby. Grandma Helen's doll baby, to be specific. We were all were Rachel, myself, Gabe, and Carter. The doll babies were well loved. Each of us has stacks of cards for every birthday and occasion, theater ticket stubs and programs, and binders full of photos from special days and everydays, organized and labeled by Grandma Helen herself to prove it. As little kids, visiting Grandma and Grandpa was like going to the carnival, and the guaranteed prize was a bag of toothpaste and dental floss. Between bouncing on the waterbed in the basement, flicking pool balls across the pool table, shuffling the magnets they'd collected on their travels across the fridge, and flipping through photo albums, the fun never stopped. We tried on countless hats and played with ancient artifacts such as a rotary phone. There was always a puzzle to do, a few games of Rummy Cube to be played, or a football game to attend, and you could be assured that Grandma would never let you leave the house with dirt under your fingernails. There were never any gourmet home-cooked meals, but one can only be so perfect, and China Cottage is delicious. We were spoiled with tickets to the theater whenever Grandma and Grandpa could get our butts in a seat. Each of us was taken on a personal trip for our bar or bat mitzvah just to have some time with our grandparents and see the world. Gabe remembers Grandma's endless patience and composure. She somehow made it seem like everything was okay. Rachel and Gabe both chose to attend college in Ohio, and so as young adults got a lot of concentrated quality Grandma and Grandpa time that was harder to come by while they grew up in Connecticut. When each of our partners came along, Harry, Scott, Haley, and Emily, Grandma's collection of doll babies grew. Before she left us, she got to see each of us find our person, someone to love as unconditionally as she loved us. Grandma raised her 3 boys to be family men of integrity and love, our uncles and our fathers, now grandparents themselves, who uplift and encourage each of us every day as she did them. And now we are mothers and uncles to the next generation of doll babies, Miles, Evan, and August. History repeated itself. 3 Ross boys born within 3 years, 60 years later. Now a great-grandmother, Helen never lost a step. Each of the boys received regular magazine subscriptions from Grandma, and she was so glad to receive each and every one of about 1 billion photos of each one of them. This past summer for her birthday, she got to squeeze all 3 of them together at the same time. Rachel's boys and my son have been so loved by her, and we only wish they could have known her a bit longer. After we lost Grandpa Alan a few years ago, we had the unexpected blessing of seeing Grandma sort of be able to come into her own for her last lap. She was always her own person and had always been terribly passionate about being and doing for everyone she loved. That, of course, didn't stop, but she was able to shift focus to herself and how she wanted to spend her days, laughing with friends and being an active member of her community at One Lincoln Park. We joked she was living the grandma college dorm life. Sometimes it would be hard to find a moment to catch her on the phone in between social engagements, but that made us happy. She was living for herself. We're told she didn't always do the joke thing, but as far as the grandchildren know, it's one of life's inescapable certainties: death, taxes, and Grandma Helen having a joke. When we would talk or tell stories, or when there was just the smallest lull in the conversation, a joke would appear. And these weren't knock-knock jokes. She took the time to paint the picture and set a scene and then smack you with a punchline. Sometimes, in an attempt to impress the master, we would try a joke of our own. We were happy to get a laugh out of her, but you had her beat when you had a Grandma Helen signature eye roll. We all do it too, her kids, her grandkids. I've even seen it in the great-grandkids. It's our inherited reflexive response to a joke that hits just the right spot. The eye roll is our birthright. Due to fortunate geography, my brother Carter and I were able to spend a solid chunk of time with Grandma at the hospital these last few weeks. My personal unit of measure for how she was feeling was how many jokes she was telling. Grandma said to me, joking at the time, "When you go to write my obituary, never mind that I went to college and got a good job. It's all about the jokes." On what would turn out to be her last good day, the jokes were back to back to back. She must have been absolutely and totally exhausted, but grandchildren were around, so the show must go on. The pace was slower, but the storytelling and the timing were as slick as ever. When Uncle Rick asked her if she wanted to get some sleep, she said, "I want to, but I want to tell the jokes." By now, you'll have heard how important family was to Grandma Helen. We've always been spread across the country and sometimes the world. That didn't matter. When we see each other, it feels like we haven't been apart more than a minute, and Grandma cultivated and treasured that closeness. She was our matriarch and the base around which we gathered. It's crushing to lose that North Star. As we've been reminded these past few weeks, she gave us all a solid affinity for gallows humor. She faced such loss at such a young age, and she was always able to find joy and a laugh when things, for lack of a better word, sucked. You can always count on a Ross to lift you up when you're down. Humor is the coping mechanism that we all have in common. These last few weeks, we've laughed through the tears, shielding ourselves from pain with jokes. As the Titanic was sinking, we chose laughter over sorrow, and I know that's what will keep us together without her. Grandma Helen gave us unconditional love, positivity, and connection. As Carter said, Grandma Helen was one of, if not the strongest and funniest women I have ever met, and I am so proud to have had her as my grandmother. She was a beacon of pure joy to all those who were blessed enough to know her. We are not without a center, and now we choose to celebrate the gift that we had in Grandma Helen for as long as we were privileged to have it. I'll close with a perspective on life and death I was sent this week and have found very comforting. It said, "I hope death is like being carried to your bedroom when you were a child who fell asleep on the couch during a family party. I hope you can hear the laughter from the next room." Grandma, we'll all keep trying to make each other laugh loud enough for you to hear, and if we're lucky, see you again in every eye roll.
To the beautiful reflections of Helen's family, I'd like to share just a little. There's a story that is told about a certain rabbi who used to visit the marketplace. And one day, the prophet Elijah appeared to him. The rabbi asked Elijah, "Are there any people here who are destined to share in the world to come?" 2 men appeared on the scene, and Elijah said to the rabbi, "These 2 men will share in the world to come." The rabbi asked of those 2 men, "What is your occupation?" They answered, "We are professional jesters. When we see a person who is downcast, we cheer him up." Even in the Talmud, our sages thought very highly of a jester, a person who dispels gloom and cheers people. They say that there is a special high place waiting for them in Gan Eden. And if the rabbis were correct, then Helen is someone who surely has merited eternity. For in her own life, she was kind and generous and really good at making people laugh, helping them to forget their troubles even for a little while. The act of cheering someone up is considered a mitzvah, a big one in the Jewish tradition. The Baal Shem Tov, the famed Jewish mystical rabbi, once said, "Whoever lives in joy does the work of the Creator." Helen embodied joy. She kept everything upbeat and cheery. She wanted others to be happy and to smile, which is why we believe she always had her fun hat on. She loved to laugh, but even more, she loved to make others laugh. And as we heard, her delivery was always on point. And nothing was ever out of bounds, apparently, to talk about. Some may say she was irreverent, but in the same breath, they would say that she was as caring and compassionate as can be. Helen has always been a social creature, and as we heard, she was excited about her move to One Lincoln Park. She worked on the Getting to Know You boards. She tried to organize people to get out of their rooms to have some fun, and she tried to live that by example. She had a full schedule up until she had to go to the hospital. She played Maj, Rummy Cube, her reading and writing clubs, She always wanted to include people into her family celebrations. There was always more room at her table. She was incredible in all that she endeavored to do. She always put things of importance and creativity and culture at the heart of it. She loved musical theater, the arts, taking in a record number of Broadway shows in a week. She enjoyed sports, of course, only The Ohio State University. She loved spending time here at Temple, and of course, she went to every United States Olympics game, except I think there was one perhaps with a grandchild, or was that an Ohio State game? She'll remember it well, though. But she loved to travel all over the world. And even with all of that, she always put her family first. She was so proud of her family. Helen was an only child. She wanted to be sure that her children had siblings to grow up with. And she put so much into her parenting, loving each of them as if they were an only child. When I asked Helen's family about her highest attributes and the many lessons she taught them, it was clear that Helen's humor was just one of many remarkable ideals. They spoke to me about her trust, honesty, love of family, passion, tenacity, energy, innovation, and patience. From her, Helen's sons learned Midwestern values, to always try to do what is right and to go after their goals. As we heard a little bit ago, home life for them was idyllic. From spending time outside, taking piano lessons, to exposure of all kinds of cultural experiences, some that were a little more risque than others, her boys have nothing but beautiful memories and appreciation. So much so that they describe themselves as helicopter sons. They felt so fortunate to have Helen as a mom that they never let her forget it. But she didn't always want that attention. She never wanted to bother anyone with any type of complaints. So many times she handled things on her own, starting, as we heard, when she was only 18 years old when her parents passed, when she took on so many responsibilities at such a young age. She learned how to work hard, and she always did. And her sons say that she was the powerhouse behind the throne, or at least behind Alan, her husband of more than 60 years. Helen and Alan met at religious school when she was 12 and Alan was 15. They began dating once they were both in college, and Helen transferred to The Ohio State University to be with him. The rest, of course, is history, with them settling here in Dayton together and having remained devoted to one another and our community ever since. Through her love and her laughter, Helen brought joy and humor into the world. Thank you, Helen, for repairing our world, one laugh at a time. For more than 87 years, Helen has been among the just and upright in this world. We pray that she may continue to rest among the just and upright forever. Her love was truly a gift from God. With her love, she helped to remind those close to her that we are all created in the image of the divine. With her, others too found the courage to live their lives to the fullest. So now we pray for Helen, that her rest and eternal slumber be one of peace. Obviously, words are never sufficient, never enough to this effort. But now it is time that we let her go into the safety of God's eternal embrace. We say, Zichrona livracha, may her memory be a source of blessing among us always. For now, a miracle is over. A unique, very unique, and precious human being is no more to our sight. But a new miracle begins, which our tradition calls shalom, peace. May her eternal soul ascend to heaven and rest in peace forevermore. Amen. I invite you to take just a moment for your own silent prayer and reflection of all that Helen meant to you and the joy she brought into your lives. At this time, we rise for El Mole Rachamim, if you are able.
El Mole Rachamim, Shochin Bamromim, Hamzim Nuchan Nuchanat, Achat Chanfi Chashina, Him Grushim Utorim Guzuhar Harakia, Mazirim, Et Nishmat Hadasabat Mordechai Berachel Shalacha Leolama, Bal Harachamim, Yastiru Besitir Gnafav Lelamim, Vitrur Achaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Nachalata, V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar Amen.
We continue now with the mourner's Kaddish. Kaddish Yatom, it is a prayer that in Jewish tradition holds the power to redeem the souls of the deceased. In itself, it does not refer to death, but in times of grief, it reminds us of the holiness of God and God's power. Please join me at this time if you are familiar with the Kaddish prayer. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'elma divra krute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon v'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal, shmei dekudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabbah min shamaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. This concludes our service this morning. On behalf of the family, I'd just like to say thank you for all of you for being here. I know it means a great deal to them, especially those who have traveled from such far distances. Following this, there will be an opportunity for you to share a meal with the family and hopefully share some wonderful memories and times that were spent together with Helen with big smiles and lots of laughs, I'm sure. This evening, there will also be an opportunity for people to gather between 6 and 9, and the Shiva Minyan will begin at 7 p.m. Tomorrow night, between 5 and 8, at Rick's temporary home in Cincinnati. If anyone needs that information, they can contact Temple, and we're happy to give that to you. So we'll see you hopefully in a few minutes as we join together and share memories together. Thank you.